Have you ever stopped to think about how one seemingly small decision could spiral into a full-blown nightmare, completely changing the course of your life? Imagine this. A mother comes to her son during a time of crisis, like a global pandemic, seeking a temporary place to stay. On the surface, it seems like an innocent request, something we might all consider doing for a loved one in need. But what happens when the dynamics of the household shift in power is subtly abused in ways you didn't expect? When kindness turns into entitlement, when shared space becomes a battleground, and when what was supposed to be a short-term arrangement becomes a struggle for control, what do you do? This is a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about family relationships. It's not just about boundaries being crossed, it's about how easily trust and respect can erode in the face of power struggles and unmet expectations. You won't want to miss this tale because after hearing it, you'll be reconsidering how you view family, personal space, and the delicate balance between love and control. Before continuing the story, tell me which city you are watching from. I want to know how far this video has come. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so I can send you exciting stories like this every day. Karen calls the cops because I won't give her my house. Here's what happened. At the beginning of lockdowns here in Germany, my mother came to me saying I should let her live with me in my house because, wait for it, I'm your mother. Well, I let her move into the granny apartment. It has a separate entrance and has one bedroom, one bathroom, kitchen and dining room, and living room. While she slept in the apartment, she used the main kitchen to cook her meals, but refused to cook shared meals, used the main living room to watch TV, and basically acted as if she owned the house. Any of my complaints, she likewise dismissed with, "I'm your mother." It all came to a head when I was working on a computer in the living room. There was a lull while the system setup was doing its thing, so I went to the kitchen to brew tea and have a snack. During this time, my mother went into the living room to watch TV, but I had been listening to Vivaldi's Four Seasons, so she started pulling power plugs in an attempt to shut off the music. One of the first plugs she pulled was, of course, the computer I'd been working on. When I came back from the kitchen, she rejected any fault for it. According to her, it was clearly my fault because she had to shut off the music to watch TV. So why should she feel free to shut off my music in my house? Not to mention that I had to start over the system setup. Well, because I'm your mother, I countered with, and my mother is a guest in my house, so until you behave like a guest, you better go to your apartment. She didn't like being treated like that one bit. Well, she went to her apartment and then left. I went to a hardware store and found new locks. Until then, the keys for the main door also worked for the apartment door and vice versa. The inside door connecting the apartment in the main house didn't have a lock at all. So yes, I locked her out of the main part of the house. And then the phone call started. First from my brother, to whom I suggested he take her in. The house he lives in alone is even larger than mine. Then my older sister, who has 2 spare rooms in her and her husband's condo since her children moved out long ago, and who didn't like the suggestion she should take our mother in either. My sister's daughter was somewhat surprised when I explained to her that the house belongs to me and not to her grandmother. Her brother only called to get my confirmation about that. My brother's son was actually on my side, but warned me about my mother planning something. So a few days later, while running errands, I get a call from the hardware store from which I bought the new locks. They told me that the police had called them to send someone to open the house. What had my mother done? She called the police for help because her son had locked her out of the house. When the officers at my house confronted me with that, I simply told them to try her key at the door on the side. Obviously, they hadn't done that before. Then they wanted proof that it was actually I who owned the house. Oddly enough, the copies of the deed I had at home were nowhere to be found. So I called my attorney, and he sent one of his partners with new copies. He also brought eviction papers, telling me to consider it. I simply asked for a pen. A couple of days later, my mother moved in with my brother. Brother, older sister, and her husband helped her with her stuff. Brother made a last effort to make me change my mind. My sister merely treated me with contempt. Brother-in-law told me quietly he vetoed our mother moving in with them before my sister even made the suggestion. But this still isn't the end of it. The police officers are pressing charges for falsely reporting a crime, me locking her out. Everyone and his little brother has called me to take back the charges. Even though I hadn't pressed them in the first place, it's out of my hands. And to tell the police that it's all just a misunderstanding. Or at least to put in a good word for her. Why? Of course, because she's your mother. But honestly, am I the jerk? So in a slightly different situation, I feel like I might have said yes. But in this case, he tried several times to explain to her that this is his own space and she can't just do what she wants in it. She even has all of her own space downstairs with a full living room and kitchen and all those things. If you want to spend time upstairs with the family, then sure, that's understandable. But you can't just come up and dominate the area of his own house. And the go-to excuse of "I'm your mother" just doesn't fly. Also, the fact that none of the other siblings were particularly eager to take her in does say something. So I'm going to have to rule on the verdict of no, not a jerk for this one. It's just a matter of defending your own personal space. Entitled couple makes the mistake of assuming my wife works here. My wife and I are senior citizens. In other words, we are old. My dear wife is a strong, independent, take no crap from anyone type of woman, and I adore her for it. She keeps me in line and pushes me to be a better man, and is the reason behind my modest success in life. She's sarcastic, wicked smart, can cuss like a sailor, and as she gets older, her filter is practically non-existent. A few months ago, we decided to treat ourselves, and we made reservations and went to a rather high-end restaurant. They had a maitre d', sommeliers, highly trained waitstaff, etc. My wife, even though she's in her 70s, has very little gray hair and can pass for 55. She was wearing a very pretty white lacy blouse, very flattering black pants, and black flats. She looked really good. When we arrived, there was no line, surprisingly, and the maitre d' had apparently stepped away from the podium where he stands. We were waiting there and my wife was right next to the podium, and I had sat down at one of the benches provided by the entrance. When another couple came in, without missing a beat, the man walks up to the podium and told my wife, Rockefeller, not the name he used. We have reservations for 2. My wife said that she was sure someone would be with them shortly. The woman huffed a little and the man said, please seat us now. My wife told them she's waiting to be seated, but the man said again, seat us now. So my wife said, right away, walk this way. And she walked with them behind her as she walked around the partition separating the entrance to the dining room, circled around to the other end and led them back to the entrance, and pointing to the bench said, sit down. The man looked like he was going to blow a gasket, and my wife repeated, I don't work here, you moron. You wanted me to seat you? So sit the F down. As the couple were sputtering, and before it could escalate further, the maitre d' arrived, and we gave our name, and he led us away. There was no yelling and no threats of police. We had a wonderful meal. Overpriced, but oh well. And the other couple was several tables away from us. We didn't interact with them again, but they did shoot us dirty looks now and then. Now, before you say my wife overreacted and could have explained that she didn't work there in a better way, she has a wicked sense of humor and hates idiots. She loves being a smart aleck and is just so good at it. It's one of the reasons that I, after being with her for all these years, still love being put in my place by her when I start getting a little too misogynistic. But I'll let you tell me. Was my wife being a jerk? Yeah, again, this is just another one of entitled people getting put in their place. Embarrassing someone a little bit who's being obnoxiously rude to your face is not being a jerk. In this case, they're probably just ashamed of their behavior and don't want to have to admit to acting like a jerk themselves. It sounds like there was no escalation or harm done over any of this, though. Both parties sit down, enjoy their meals, and go their separate ways. My desktop is not the same as your desktop, so this just happened like a minute ago. One of the team leads in my department was having trouble getting something to work in Excel and pinged me for help. I asked if she could email me the spreadsheet so I could take a look myself. And she sends me a link instead to the spreadsheet on her desktop, as in her C drive /users/username/desktop. I began rubbing my temples because I knew this particular person well enough to know that a simple explanation would not be heard, processed, and acted on. But I had to try anyway. I responded explaining that I can't access files stored on her hard drive and that she needs to send it to me as an attachment. She responds by saying, it's on the desktop. If the link won't work, just open it. I again explained that her desktop and my desktop are not the same thing, and I am no more able to open items on her desktop than she is of opening things on mine. She responds, somehow arguing with the guy that she wants help from, if I'm so incompetent, why are you asking me for help? That she's opened the recycle bin and I have a recycle bin. Therefore, since we both have recycle bins, I should be able to open things on our desktop. This is the point where I dial back the professionalism and let my tenure absorb the hit if she pitches a fit. I say, excuse me, and get up, then turn on the kitchen faucet. I work from home, and I know from prior experience that it's audible from my home office. I sit back down at my desk and say, I've just turned my kitchen faucet on. Do you have any water in your sink? The silence lasted a good 10 seconds, and I swear I could almost hear the hamster wheel in her head straining. And finally she says, quietly and clearly trying to sound as neutral and unflustered as possible, okay, that makes sense. I'll send it over as an attachment. But I don't think I was being a jerk, was I? As someone who's worked in tech, this is actually just hilarious to me. No, I don't think you were being a jerk at all. This was just an attempt to make a clear way to understand something that she otherwise wasn't understanding. I totally get how frustrating it can be trying to explain this kind of process to someone who just isn't picking up what you're putting down. And as the tech support guy, I'm sure they have to deal with this all the time. Like he said, he's familiar enough with this lady to know that she's not going to understand a simple explanation. He just happened to find a funny and maybe slightly sarcastic way of explaining it to her. No real harm done here. And let's be honest, it was pretty funny. Apparently, I'm a jerk for not giving my grandson a job that I offered him. I always wished my sons would like to follow in my footsteps. I own a small business that pays really well, and I wanted them to work for me and learn how to manage it so they can have it after me. But neither of them was interested, which is all right. I understand that they have their own dreams. My granddaughter, who turned 16 9 months ago, was looking for a part-time job. She asked me if she can work for me and learn from me. She's been doing a really good job and is planning to work with me full-time after high school. I'm of course very glad that one of my kids is finally showing interest in my job. And since she's my granddaughter, I pay her more than I would any stranger. Also, she gets to set her own schedule, so basically I'm more flexible with her. My sons and their families were all at my home a few days ago. We were all talking and the conversation went towards jobs. My son asked my granddaughter about her job and was peeved when he found out the payment and schedule. He said that his son, 17, had a job that is harder than hers and pays less. He accused me of favoring my granddaughter and asked me to give my grandson a job. I told him that my grandson had the option to take this job, but didn't. He said they didn't know the conditions of this job. I told him there's no opening anymore, and I don't want the business to be split between multiple people. Granddaughter is going to get the business. Everyone else had the chance, but decided not to use it. He called me a jerk and said it's not fair to give her everything and not give my grandson anything. I don't know, am I being a jerk? This just kind of feels like one of those situations where someone finds out after the fact what a good deal they were offered and are just kind of peeved that they turned it down. It's no fault of the original poster that the granddaughter decided to take the position. It had been open for however long and was available to anyone who was interested. She just seems to be the only one that ever really showed an interest in it. I feel like it's hard to get upset after the fact and try and throw blame elsewhere. Definitely not a jerk for this one. I couldn't help but be honest with my mother-in-law about why I was making my husband sleep on the couch. My husband and I had a big fight last night because of how he was talking about the women his two bosses are married to. Basically, he works at a firm owned by two business partners, and their wives despise each other. Everyone at the firm knows it, so they decided to do a prank at the company party and get them to unknowingly wear the same dress. Personally, I didn't think it was funny, as I don't like seeing women treated like that, but everyone thought it was hilarious. I recently overheard my husband talking to a coworker, and the guy mentioned having a good picture of it. My husband made a joke about how he should send him that picture as they're both so beautiful it would be like having a piece of art. Needless to say, I was beyond hurt, and I had him sleep on the couch. My mother-in-law came over later in the day to pick up our kids. She's pretty nosy, and usually when she asks questions, I'm honest and tell her it's none of her business. But I thought she should know what type of son she raised. So when she asked why there were pillows and blankets on the couch, I answered honestly. Mother-in-law thought it was funny and told father-in-law, who made a gross comment about how if my husband was more successful, maybe he could have a wife who looked like them. This really hurt my husband, and now he's saying that I'm the jerk because I know how his parents are, and I weaponized them to hurt him. He feels I was petty, as I normally have no issue telling mother-in-law to mind her own business. So, was I being the jerk? All right, there seems like a lot that's off with this story, and I'm really hoping that my male perspective here isn't skewing me. I feel like having the husband sleep on the couch for this is a bit of an overreaction. This seems like a prank that a bunch of other people kind of started and were involved in, and your husband was just kind of laughing about with a coworker. I could understand her potentially being a little upset over this prank. However, that's just all it is, was a small prank, I feel. No one was hurt, and no harm was really done in this instance. What bothers me a lot more is the comment that came from the father-in-law about how if his son maybe made more money, he would have a better-looking wife, either implying he would be with a better-looking woman or she could afford to look better, both of which are offensive. Yet this seems to be the comment that goes almost unregistered by the wife. I don't know, something seems a little off with this whole thing. I don't know, I feel like this whole thing was just a bit of an overreaction. Sorry, sis, it's not my fault you never got to go to your dream school. The family dynamic is messy and complicated, but I'll try and clear up any confusion. I'm the oldest out of my 4 siblings. Me, 43-year-old male, Julia, 40-year-old female, Kenzie, 27-year-old female, and Katie, 23-year-old female. Julia doesn't play a part of this. She disowned the family, and yeah, our dad ran out on us, and mom was busted for possession, among other crimes, when Katie and Kenzie were still very young. So they ended up in the custody of my grandma. If you ask them, they survived World War II. But it wasn't that bad. Our grandma was overly protective and tired of having to take care of kids again. But nothing extreme. Her health rapidly declined in their early teen years. I was out of state, so I wasn't a physical caregiver. I was power of attorney, so I was a financial caregiver, while they took care of the physical needs. Katie was going to drop out of high school. She barely graduated. This is important for the future. Once she graduated, her and Kenzie came to me. They said they wanted to put grandma in a home so Kenzie could take a manager position. And Katie wanted to get out of town, go to our state capital, take classes at a community college, and transfer to their selective university. She said a teacher who knew her situation believed she had potential to get there and become something great. They said it wasn't possible when caring for grandma. I told them no. They've resented me since. Katie went to a community college in our town and flunked out right away. After grandma died, she went back and has been doing all right. She fell into depression after her boyfriend cheated on her. She was talking about it to Kenzie and myself and said the thing that hurt was the person he cheated with was beautiful, talented, and then she said his affair partner actually goes to her dream school. She said this girl was everything she should have had in life: well-rounded high school experience, parents to support her, a great education, and now this girl had truly taken everything from her. Then she mentioned she should have been at that school, but she was wiping the butt of something who called her every name in the book for 2 more years longer than she should have. This isn't the first time she's been tipsy and made a passive-aggressive comment. So I told her, Katie, I'm not the reason you couldn't go into your dream school. You failed out right away from community college and would have did the same thing there. You weren't ready and can't accept that. Kenzie told me that I was being a jerk who didn't understand burnout. Am I the jerk? Yeah, this is a situation that I definitely feel like could have been handled in a lot of different ways, and a lot of those probably being better than the way it was handled. It seems like the original poster may have kind of brushed aside how his sisters were feeling. They had stated their displeasure at living with grandma, let alone having to take care of her for an extended number of years. Once the time came for them to properly try and start their lives, they came to him asking for some kind of help and relief. It seems like this maybe should have been considered a little more carefully than just a straight-up no. At the end of the day, perhaps a home is the best place for grandma at that point, where she can properly be looked after. It may also be that the original poster just didn't want to have to pay for it and felt he was getting free labor from his sisters. I would like to hope that isn't the intent here, but it seems like that may be the case. I feel like I gotta make the call on this one. You're being a jerk. Sorry, husband. I know you want to play video games, but you still have responsibilities. Ever since Modern Warfare 2 came out, all my husband has done is play it. He doesn't help with the baby and gives me attitude if I tell him to stop playing. His father is in town visiting, and he's been ignoring him the whole time and has been on this stupid game. I finally snapped at him today and told him I don't want him playing the video game anymore. He needed to wake up today so he could take his dad to meet someone to buy a truck. He's driving back instead of flying, but he wouldn't get up. So I had to take our daughter with me to meet a stranger because he wouldn't get up to go with his dad. I blew up on him by a text telling him that I was sick of this, and I was tired of him putting a video game over his family. He told me I was being the jerk for trying to limit his video game time because he's depressed. I'm tired of feeling like a single mom to a video game. Am I the jerk for telling him I don't want him playing it anymore? Not that it matters, because he's still playing it now at 2:18 in the morning. All right, so this one at face value definitely seems like the husband is probably just trying to avoid doing anything and just wants to play his video game instead. Now, in the interest of listening to both parties' sides of the story, he does say that he's depressed. As someone who's had to deal with depression, I do understand how it can be hard to have to deal with regular everyday situations and how you kind of want to just be left alone and do your own thing. But it's pretty clear that he has some serious responsibilities here with a baby in the house and his father in town needing his help. So sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. Sometimes you have to pull yourself out of that hole and just get over that bump and start moving. Once you get going, it's really not so bad, and you can get done what you needed to do and then be able to enjoy your game a little bit more without feeling guilty about not having taken care of the tasks you needed to take care of. Original poster, definitely not the jerk in this situation. Husband kind of seems like he's being the jerk and maybe just using depression as an excuse. But it isn't something that you ever want to assume someone is using as an excuse. And if he really is depressed, I hope he's getting the help he needs. This story about the son and his mother raises significant and thought-provoking questions about family relationships, personal boundaries, and the responsibilities we owe to our loved ones. In a world where emotions often run high, the dynamics of family interactions can be complex and difficult to navigate. How often do we truly understand the fine line between love and control? How frequently do we recognize when care and concern turn into overbearing dominance? It's a delicate balance that each of us struggles with in our own lives, and stories like these can offer both insight and a warning about how easily things can spiral out of control. The tale begins with a simple request from a mother seeking to live with her son. During the chaos of a global pandemic, her request seems reasonable at first. She just needs a place to stay temporarily. However, as the story unfolds, we witness the slow but undeniable shift of power dynamics within the household. The mother, originally invited to stay, begins to see the house as her own, acting with a sense of entitlement and disregarding the boundaries of her son. What begins as a gesture of familial support soon turns into a battle for respect, personal space, and control. This story, with its perfect blend of humor, frustration, and drama, reflects a harsh reality in today's society. It's a scenario that many can relate to. When family dynamics become unclear, when roles become muddled, and when the rights and duties of each family member become entangled, even the smallest decisions can set off a chain of events that leads to unexpected, often destructive outcomes. The situation escalates when the son makes the choice to lock the doors of the house in a desperate attempt to restore balance and regain control over his own space. The son's decision to lock the door might seem like a minor act of defiance at first glance. A simple no to his mother's requests, a boundary being drawn in the sand, and a personal space being protected. But in reality, it's much more than that. It's a declaration of his need to be respected, to have his own home be a place where he feels safe, and to maintain a sense of autonomy in a world where, more often than not, personal space seems to be in short supply. What was initially intended to be a small act of asserting his rights quickly snowballed into an uncontrollable series of events. The decision to lock the door led to a confrontation with not just his mother, but the entire family. His actions triggered a storm that reverberated throughout the household. The involvement of the police, the investigation, and the numerous calls from other family members urging him to change his mind created tension and turmoil within the family unit. Suddenly, what should have been a simple boundary became a family crisis, forcing the son to reconsider his actions and navigate the complex web of emotions, opinions, and expectations that come with the family ties. The son's act of locking the door became a symbol of defiance, but it also reflected a much deeper issue at play: the need for respect, understanding, and the preservation of personal space. At the core of this story is a fundamental lesson in respecting personal space and understanding the importance of boundaries. The son, though forced to take extreme measures, was merely seeking to protect his personal space, a basic right that anyone should have regardless of familial ties. No matter how close-knit a family is, no matter how much love and care we have for one another, boundaries are essential for maintaining a healthy and respectful relationship. The fact that his family pressured him to reverse his decision only further emphasized the importance of standing up for oneself and maintaining one's integrity. This wasn't about rejecting his mother. This was about asserting his right to a safe and private space within his own home. It's a common theme in families: the push and pull between love and control. While family members may have the best intentions, sometimes those intentions can result in overstepping boundaries. The mother in this case acted out of a sense of entitlement, not understanding the emotional toll she was placing on her son by disregarding his need for personal space. Similarly, the other family members, though sympathetic to the mother's cause, failed to understand the son's need for respect and privacy. They saw his actions as harsh, even unjust, but they did not see the deeper emotional struggle that led him to make those decisions. This is where the true complexity of family dynamics comes to light: the difference between what is expected of you as a family member and what it behooves to maintain your own identity within that family. As life continues to grow more complicated with each passing day, each of us must learn to stand up for what is rightfully ours. It's easy to get swept up in the demands and expectations of others, especially when it comes to family. But there comes a time when we must prioritize our own well-being, our personal space, and our mental health. In challenging situations like this, making bold decisions can often lead to positive changes, not just for ourselves, but for those around us as well. Sometimes the hardest part of standing up for yourself is dealing with the emotional fallout, especially when your actions aren't understood or appreciated by those closest to you. But in the end, protecting your space and your mental health is always the right choice. Whether or not you agree with the son's actions, this story compels us to rethink how we approach conflict and boundaries within our families. It's a reminder that the lines between love and control can often become blurred, and that it's essential to have open communication and mutual respect when navigating complex family dynamics. We are all entitled to our own space, our own privacy, and our own sense of self-worth. When these things are threatened, we must take a stand, no matter how difficult it may seem. And even though the road to resolution may be painful, it often leads to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the people around us. If you found this story compelling, thought-provoking, and emotionally charged, and if you want to dive into more exciting, dramatic, and meaningful scenarios, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications on our YouTube channel. By subscribing, you will gain access to a wealth of captivating stories that explore the complexities of life, relationships, and personal boundaries. We will continue to bring you emotional debates and engaging narratives that spark introspection and conversation. Don't miss out on our weekly content that challenges perceptions, inspires growth, and provides valuable lessons on how to navigate the intricacies of human relationships. Join us on this journey, and together we will explore fascinating stories that offer both entertainment and enlightenment. Subscribe now and make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a video in the future. Stay connected, stay curious, and keep exploring the stories that shape our world.